The first time I realized something was wrong with my boss, I didn't have proof, only a feeling. A feeling that slid into my gut like cold water and stayed there, still and heavy, every time he smiled at me too warmly or praised my work too generously. People always say intuition is a whisper, but mine wasn't soft at all. It was a sharp warning, a quiet siren, telling me that Seth Porter was the kind of man who polished his reputation so brightly that no one noticed the rust underneath. The firm itself, Porter and Nolan Financial Consultancy, was a sleek, modern, glass-paneled building downtown, the sort of place where people wore designer suits even if they were drowning in debt. Coming straight out of grad school at 27, I felt lucky to be hired as a junior forensic analyst. Jobs like this didn't fall easily into your lap, especially not for someone like me who grew up fighting through every obstacle life threw my way. I was raised in a small Ohio town most people couldn't point to on a map. My mother worked double shifts cleaning motel rooms, my father disappeared before I was born, and college only happened because I earned scholarships and hustled side jobs like my life depended on it. Maybe it did. I promised myself I'd claw my way into a better life and never look back. So when Porter and Nolan hired me, I told myself this was my chance, my clean slate, my step into the world of people who controlled the money, the future, the rules. What I didn't know, what I couldn't know, was that I was stepping into a place where people had perfected betrayal into an art, where the truth was buried under layers of paperwork and manipulation, and where crossing the wrong man meant losing far more than a job. Seth Porter, co-founder and majority owner, was the kind of man people always listened to. Mid-40s, sharp jawline, cold blue eyes, and a handshake that lasted a second too long. Everyone said he was brilliant, ruthless, and the reason the firm had grown so fast. He was also the kind of man who treated every tiny success of yours as if he personally gifted it to you. At first, I thought he was simply intense, driven, focused, but little cracks in his facade started showing. One night at the office, well past 9 p.m, I was the only one still working, or so I thought. A quick run-through of financial statements for one of our major clients, Rindle Medical Suppliers, revealed discrepancies I couldn't ignore, numbers that didn't align, transfers labeled as consulting fees but routed through strange offshore accounts. At first glance it looked like typical tax minimization strategies, legal but aggressive, but the more I dug, the more it felt wrong. That night I heard footsteps approaching my area, then Seth's voice. "You're still here, you're making the rest of us look bad." I forced a smile, just trying to understand some irregularities in the Rindle files, the numbers aren't adding up. He walked closer and his face changed, just a flicker, not even a full expression but enough. A tiny tightening around his eyes, a slight shift in his jaw. "Those files are above your clearance level," he said too calmly. "Don't waste your time on them." "But I wasn't accessing anything restricted," I replied. "I was reviewing data for tomorrow's meeting." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If anything stands out to you, run it by me first. You're new, you don't want to misunderstand things." I nodded, but something inside me hardened. Misunderstand? I wasn't a child and numbers didn't lie, people did. A week later I was officially assigned to the Rindle case, something that surprised the entire team. It was Seth's personal account, his baby. The fact that he gave it to me felt strange, like someone handing you a box with unknown contents and watching closely to see whether you would open it or not. The deeper I went into the files, the more everything reeked of fraud. Not small mistakes, massive, coordinated tax evasion, false invoices, shell companies in the Caribbean, exaggerated losses, income hidden under fabricated expenditures. The work was clever, meticulous, buried under layers of documentation so dense that most analysts would never catch it. But I caught it. And that was the moment everything changed. I didn't want to believe it at first. I didn't want to admit the man leading an entire financial empire was committing crimes that could destroy hundreds of jobs, ruin lives, and shake the trust of every client who had ever walked through our doors. But the truth stared at me from every spreadsheet. The next time Seth called me into his office, I felt my pulse hammering in my throat. He sat behind his enormous walnut desk, fingers steepled, smile carefully assembled. "You're doing exceptional work," he said. "Truly impressive, you're sharp, fast, you have instincts." My gut twisted, praise before punishment, classic manipulation tactic. "Thank you," I said cautiously. He leaned forward slightly. "But I need to remind you that certain matters within the Rindle account are confidential. If something looks off, bring it to me, not anyone else. You understand? I nodded, though the unease suffocated me. When I left his office, every step felt heavier than the last. I couldn't ignore what I had found, but I couldn't expose it without evidence. Hard evidence, verifiable evidence. So I did what forensic analysts do best. I built a trail. Carefully, quietly, documenting discrepancies, saving copies, cross-checking statements, and encrypting everything in a private drive Seth couldn't access even if he tried. 2 weeks later, the breaking point arrived. Seth called an emergency meeting. Every senior staff member, every department head, everyone except me. I heard whispers in the hallway, my name, spoken in hushed tones, people glancing at me as if expecting me to crumble. At noon, I was called in. Seth stood tall at the front of the room, his expression grim, and I knew before he even spoke that he was going to make a move. We've discovered internal errors compromising confidential financial data, he said, eyes sweeping the room dramatically. Loose handling of files, possible breaches. I felt my breath leave my lungs. Then his gaze locked onto mine with a cold precision. We've traced the irregular activity to one of our junior analysts. A silence so heavy it felt like the entire room inhaled. My chest tightened. This was it. He was framing me. I took a step forward. I haven't breached any data. Let her speak, said one of the senior partners, but it wasn't a request. It was a warning. Seth gave them a show. He projected fake logs on the screen, falsified access trails showing my ID, pulling restricted documents I had never touched. He accused me of downloading sensitive files to my personal drive. He even referenced fabricated timestamps showing I had accessed client data after hours. All lies. All built from manipulated internal records he controlled. I felt heat flush into my face, my vision blurred for a moment. This wasn't just about silencing me, this was about destroying me. Someone asked, why would she do this? Seth didn't miss a beat. Ambition, inexperience, curiosity, who knows, but we can't tolerate breaches, intentional or not. By the end of the meeting, I was suspended pending internal review, effective immediately. Everyone avoided my eyes. Everyone except Emma, my closest co-worker. Her hands trembled as she whispered, I'm so sorry. I walked out of the building numb, like I was floating outside of my own body, watching the worst day of my life unfold. My career, my reputation, my future, all hanging by a thread Seth was actively cutting. When I got home, I locked the door, collapsed on the couch, and let myself break for the first time in years. Ugly tears, rage, betrayal so deep it made my chest ache. How dare he, how dare that man try to destroy everything I worked for? But pain eventually reshapes itself into purpose. By midnight, after exhaustion gave way to clarity, a single thought took over my mind like wildfire. If he wanted to destroy me to protect his crimes, then I was done playing safe. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to back down. I was going to expose him. Not quietly. Not delicately, but completely. Everything I had, every file, every copy, every trace of evidence, I organized it into a massive encrypted dossier. I added timestamped notes, cross-referenced data, and even screenshots that proved I hadn't accessed the files he claimed I did. I built a narrative so airtight that not even he, with all his money and lawyers, could wiggle out of it easily. But going to the authorities wasn't as simple as it sounded. Seth had connections everywhere, city officials, financial regulators, attorneys, politicians. If I slipped up, he wouldn't just silence me professionally, he'd bury me. The turning point came 3 days later when a thick envelope appeared under my apartment door. No return address, no signature. Inside was a letter typed in plain black ink. Stop digging, you don't know who you're dealing with. And below it, a Xerox of a photo of me leaving my building, taken the night before. Someone was watching me. Fear crept through me like ice, but anger burned hotter. He wanted to scare me. He wanted me to fold. But he underestimated one thing. I wasn't the scared girl he thought I was. I was the wrong woman to corner. And he had just declared war. I spent the next morning sitting in a cafe across town, headphones in, laptop open, reviewing the evidence again and again. I needed a plan that wouldn't get me arrested, fired permanently, or worse. Seth wasn't the kind of man who left loose ends. If he thought ruining my career wasn't enough, he'd take things further. But he didn't know I had one thing he didn't. A friend in the IRS. Not a powerful friend, not someone high-ranking, but someone who owed me a favor, a girl I helped pass statistics back in college who now worked in the IRS Fraud Investigations Unit. Her name was Alyssa, and she was no stranger to corrupt financial schemes. I didn't send her the documents outright. That would be dangerous. Instead, I contacted her through a secure channel, letting her know I had information on a major tax fraud scheme and needed to know the safest way to pass it along. Her response came quickly. "If it's as big as you say, you'll need protection. Meet me in person." Before I could schedule a meeting, things took a turn. Someone tried to break into my apartment that night. The scratching near the lock woke me, soft at first then urgent. A silhouette lingered outside my door. My heart stopped, my breath froze. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept near my bed, the one that until then had only been for show. Suddenly the scratching stopped. Footsteps retreated. My entire body shook. He wasn't just trying to silence me anymore. He wanted to scare me so deeply that I wouldn't be able to think straight. But the opposite happened. Fear sharpened into purpose. By morning I booked a train ticket to Washington where Alyssa worked. No flights too easy to track, no texts too easy to intercept. Before I left, I backed up all my evidence on a secure server and scheduled an automatic release to multiple media outlets if anything happened to me. If Seth Porter wanted war, he was about to get one. A war he couldn't win. A war I'd planned for. A war I'd finish. This time, I wasn't the scared junior analyst he thought he could stomp on. This time, I was the woman who would burn his empire to ashes, slowly, methodically, and with a smile on my face. As my train pulled away from the platform, I looked out the window, watching the city shrink in the distance. Seth thought he controlled everything. But he didn't control me. And he didn't control the truth. Not anymore. The train hummed beneath me as it carved through the early morning fog, the landscape shifting from glass towers to open stretches of quiet countryside. I kept my hood up, my backpack zipped against my chest, my laptop pinned between my knees like a lifeline. Every passing minute carried me farther from Seth's reach, or so I hoped, but anxiety still clung to me like a second skin. I replayed the break-in attempt over and over in my head, imagining different outcomes. None of them were good. I didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time I shut my eyes, I heard the metallic click of my door latch, the soft scrape of tools, the faint shifting of someone's weight outside my apartment. Someone had come with purpose, someone who expected me to be too scared to fight back. They didn't know me at all. When the train finally slowed into Washington Union Station, the noise snapped me back into the present. People jostled for luggage, announcements echoed, and the air smelled of coffee and diesel. I slipped into the crowd, keeping my head low but my eyes sharp. Paranoia maybe, but justified paranoia. Alyssa had told me to meet her at a small cafe 3 blocks from the station. Neutral ground, quiet, safe, or as safe as anything could be now. I arrived 10 minutes early and tucked myself into a corner booth where I could see the entrance, the windows, and every person walking by. My hands were ice cold despite the warm room. I ordered tea just so I'd have something to hold. Alyssa walked in 5 minutes later, her hair in a messy bun, her government badge tucked under her jacket, her eyes scanning the room before settling on me. When she reached the table, she didn't smile. "You look like hell," she whispered as she slid into the seat. "I've had a week," I replied. "You said you have something big." "It's bigger than big, and dangerous." She blanched a little but nodded for me to go on. I pulled my laptop from my bag and opened the encrypted folder, but I didn't turn it to her. "Before I show you anything," I said quietly, "I need to know how protected I'd be if I became a whistleblower." She hesitated. Protected? In theory, yes, under federal whistleblower laws, but in practice, it depends on who you're going up against. "He's connected, very connected." "How connected?" "Politicians, regulators, attorneys, people who'd bury evidence with a smile." Alyssa exhaled slowly. "Okay, then I need to be careful. If I take this straight to my supervisor, it could leak. If it leaks, he'll know you're talking to us, and if he knows you're talking to us, he'll move fast. He already tried. She stared at me. What? Someone tried to break into my apartment. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Damn, okay, then we're treating this like a high-risk disclosure. Let me see what you've got. I finally turned the laptop toward her. She leaned in, scrolling through documents, examining screenshots, proofs, cross-checked audits I had compiled. Her expression shifted from curiosity to shock to something darker. This is enormous, she murmured. This isn't a mistake, this is orchestrated. I know. And the offshore transfers. I traced them, all of them. She shook her head. This could trigger a federal investigation. That's the idea. But if the wrong person intercepts this... I know. Alyssa closed the laptop gently, as if touching something radioactive. You need legal counsel, she said. I can't afford a lawyer, and I don't know who I can trust. Then you need a whistleblower protection attorney, a federal one. They take your case based on merit, not money. But contacting one puts me on the radar. Not if I make the introduction privately. The relief was small but real. Alyssa scribbled a name and a private number onto a napkin, pushed it toward me and said, Call her, today, and don't go back home. Where am I supposed to stay? I booked you a hotel under my name, 20 minutes from here. They can't trace it to you. This right here was why I trusted her. She didn't flinch, didn't question my motives. She saw the truth for what it was. We left separately. On my way to the hotel, I sensed someone watching me again, not directly, but the feeling crawled up my spine like an unwelcome hand. Twice I changed streets, took unexpected turns, entered a store and exited through another door. Only when I was sure I wasn't followed did I finally check in. The room was small but clean, neutral, anonymous. I sat on the bed letting out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I didn't get long to relax. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text appeared. You're making a mistake. My blood froze. Another message followed. Go home, forget this. Then, this is your final warning. I blocked the number immediately, but fear wrapped around my throat like a rope. He knew I was gone. He knew I hadn't folded. He knew I was fighting back. Good. Let him feel threatened. He had no idea how far I was willing to go. The next morning, after barely 2 hours of restless sleep, I called the attorney Alyssa recommended. Her name was Marissa Hale, and from the moment she answered, her confidence steadied me. I've reviewed whistleblower cases involving corporate fraud, government corruption, environmental crimes, you name it, she said. Alyssa briefed me. I can protect you, but you need to follow my instructions exactly. I will. First step, don't contact your employer, don't respond to threats, don't go home. Second, I'll need a secure copy of your evidence to begin filing the report. Third, you need to know that once this starts, there's no turning back. I'm already past the point of return. She paused before saying, Good, then let's begin. We arranged to meet later that afternoon in her office, a small but fortified space inside a federal building. Going inside required passing through multiple security checks. Just stepping into that environment made me breathe easier. I handed over the encrypted drive. She plugged it in, brows furrowing as she skimmed through portions of the dossier. My God, she whispered, your boss isn't just committing fraud, he's laundering money. I suspected that too. This is felony level, he could face decades. Good. She closed the laptop and sat back, studying me with a new kind of respect. You're brave, most people would have run. Running won't stop a man like him. No, she agreed, but exposing him might. We spent hours building the initial disclosure package. She explained every step, every risk. She reminded me that whistleblowers often faced smear campaigns, retaliation, public character assassination. He already smeared me, I said. He already tried to eliminate me. Then you've got nothing left to lose. By evening, the formal complaint was officially filed with the IRS Criminal Investigations Division. A fuse had been lit. A fuse that would burn straight into the heart of Seth Porter's empire. That night back at the hotel, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I had just set in motion. Fear was there, of course it was, but beneath it pulsed something stronger. Resolve. He thought he could corner me. He thought he could scare me silent. He thought he could destroy my life to protect his crimes. He was about to learn he'd underestimated the wrong woman. The next morning, everything began to unravel. Not for me. For him. A team of federal agents raided Porter and Nolan before the office even opened. I wasn't there to see it, but I could imagine the chaos. Agents flooding in with warrants, demanding access to servers, seizing records, freezing accounts. I imagined Seth's face as reality slammed into him. The confusion, the panic, the rage. What I didn't imagine, but learned later, was that Seth tried to destroy evidence the moment he saw the agents coming. He failed. They seized everything. An hour later, Seth's lawyer began calling every employee, advising them not to speak to investigators. But it was too late. People were turning on him fast. His second-in-command, Nolan Pierce, caved almost immediately, handing over emails and internal memos Seth thought he had deleted. Within the same day, the media caught wind of the story. The headline flashed across my phone. Porter and Nolan financial firm under federal investigation for massive tax fraud scheme. Another headline followed. Sources claim internal whistleblower sparked raid. Seth must have lost his mind. But it wasn't until my phone rang, again from an unknown number, that I felt the full force of his desperation. I answered cautiously. No greeting, no hesitation. Just pure venom dripping from every word. You think you've won. It was Seth. My stomach clenched, but my voice remained steady. I think the truth won. You're finished, he hissed. I'll bury you for this. You already tried, I said coldly, and you failed. Silence. Then something darker. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, a criminal, and soon the entire country will know it too. His breath crackled through the phone, heavy with fury. This isn't over, he growled. It's over for you, I corrected, not me. He hung up. I stared at the phone, adrenaline coursing through me, hands shaking. That call wasn't a threat. It was a confession. A desperate man realizing his empire was slipping through his fingers. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. Because the next move he made wasn't toward me. It was toward someone I loved. And that was the moment revenge became personal. The message came late, just past midnight, when the world outside was quiet enough for danger to whisper. My phone buzzed once, then again. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another unknown number threat, but the third buzz made me look. It was from my mother. Not a call. A text. Honey, did you send someone to the house? There's a man outside. My entire body froze. A second text followed instantly, the typing frantic. He's been sitting in a black car for an hour. He walked up to the porch just now. He knocked, I didn't answer. Then, I'm scared. I shot up from the bed, heart pounding so violently I felt nauseous. Of all the people Seth could have gone after, he went for the only person in the world I had left. I called her immediately. She answered on the second ring, her voice shaky and thin. There's someone outside, she whispered. He keeps knocking. Mom, listen to me carefully, I said, my throat tight, fighting panic. Go to the back of the house. Go now, lock the bedroom door, I'm calling the police. But he's walking around. Mom's goes. I heard her breath catch. Her footsteps hurried across the floor, a soft click as she locked the bedroom door. My blood burned. I dialed 911, giving her address, telling them there was an unknown man attempting to enter. I didn't mention the full truth, not yet. Not while Seth still had influence, but the operator promised officers were on their way. I stayed on the phone with my mother until she whispered, "They're here, I hear the sirens." Only then did I breathe again. The officers searched the area, found footprints, tire tracks, but the man was gone. The black car was gone. He had been there, and he had left with the confidence of someone who believed he couldn't be touched. My mother begged to know what was happening, why someone would come to her house, but I couldn't give her the truth. Not yet, not while everything was in motion. "Stay with a neighbor tonight," I said softly. "I'll explain soon." She didn't argue, she heard the fear I couldn't hide. After the call, I sat in the dark hotel room, fists clenched so tight my nails pierced skin. Seth had crossed the final line. This was no longer about protecting myself. This was about taking away the very thing that made him powerful, fear. I stayed awake until morning, packing the room, mapping every possible move in my head. My whistleblower attorney, Marissa, needed to know what happened. The IRS team needed to know. This wasn't just retaliation. This was witness intimidation, a federal crime on top of his other crimes. By sunrise, I was in Marissa's office. She listened without interrupting, jaw tightening with every detail. "This changes everything," she said finally. "Porter isn't panicking, he's spiraling, and spiraling men get sloppy. What do we do?" "We alert the agents assigned to your case, immediately." Within the hour, I was sitting in a secure conference room with two federal agents, Agent Marcus Cole and Agent Leila Hernandez, both from the IRSCI Special Investigations Unit. Their faces were serious, eyes sharp, demeanor no nonsense. They listened to me describe the events, starting with the break-in attempt at my apartment, the threatening texts, the phone call, and the night at my mother's house. When I finished, Agent Hernandez leaned forward. "This isn't just intimidation," she said. "This is stalking, harassment, and attempted coercion of a federal whistleblower. He's digging his own grave." Agent Cole nodded. "If he sent someone to your mother's house, that means he believes you've given evidence to authorities, or he's afraid you're about to." "He knows," I said. "The raid must have tipped him off." "Then we need to move fast," Cole said. "What happens now?" I asked. Cole exchanged a look with Hernandez. "We accelerate the investigation. If he becomes a danger, we involve federal protection." I swallowed hard. Witness protection. If necessary. Part of me hated the sound of it, changing my entire life because of a man like Seth, but the part that wanted him stopped one out. They didn't waste time. That same day, agents executed a second raid, this time on Seth's personal residence. They seized his devices, documents, hard drives, and, most importantly, his phone. The same phone he used to call me. The same phone he used to send threatening messages. Within hours, they had proof he ordered someone to pay a visit to my mother's home, proof he had tracked my travel, proof he was doing everything possible to interfere with the investigation. Arrest was imminent. I stayed in my hotel room, waiting for the call, waiting to hear that Seth Porter, the man who built an empire on fraud and manipulation and intimidation, had finally been brought down. But the call didn't come that night. It came in the morning. Marissa called first. "Are you watching the news?" she asked, voice trembling with adrenaline. "No, what?" "Turn it on now." I grabbed the remote and switched to the first news channel I could find. And there it was. A headline stretched across the screen. Financial CEO Seth Porter arrested on multiple federal charges. A video followed Seth in handcuffs being escorted by federal agents out of his home, his face pale and twisted with fury. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, the image felt unreal. "He's in custody," Marissa confirmed. "They're charging him with tax fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, obstruction of justice, and harassment of a federal witness." I let out a shaky breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "He's done," she said, "completely done." But the victory was only beginning. Within 48 hours, revelations exploded across news networks. Former employees came forward. Clients came forward. Even his partner, Nolan, began cooperating fully to save himself. The entire financial world watched Porter and Nolan implode publicly. It became the biggest corporate scandal of the year. And behind it all, quietly hidden from public view, was me. Not exposed. Not named. Protected. But that didn't mean the war was over, not yet. Because Seth, even behind bars, still imagined himself untouchable. 2 days after his arrest, Marissa called again, this time in person, meeting me in the secure conference room with agents Cole and Hernandez. Marissa opened a file and slid it toward me. "What is it?" I asked. Hernandez answered, "A plea offer." "For me?" "No," she said, "for him." Cole leaned in. "His lawyers want to negotiate." I blinked. "Negotiate with what leverage? He's finished." "Correction," Cole said flatly. "His empire is finished, but he still thinks he can save himself." Marissa tapped the file. "They're claiming parts of the evidence were obtained illegally." "He's lying," I said. "Of course he is," Cole replied. "But that's what criminals do when they're drowning, they grab anything." "So what does he want?" I asked, jaw tight. Marissa looked up, her expression both grim and furious. "He wants to meet the whistleblower." My blood ran cold. "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "No, no way." "Of course not," she agreed quickly. "No one is entertaining it, but the fact that he asked tells us something." "What?" Hernandez answered quietly. "He still thinks he can intimidate you, even from a cell." Cole added, "Men like him don't believe consequences apply to them. They only understand one thing, losing." I leaned back, breathing hard, "Then let him lose." "Oh, he will," Hernandez said. "But losing wasn't enough. Not after everything he put me through. Not after going after my mother. Not after framing me. Not after trying to destroy my life. No, he needed to fall all the way." The trial preparations moved fast, faster than I expected. Thanks to my evidence, to the panic within his own circle, to the avalanche of insiders turning against him, the case was airtight. The prosecutors called me the backbone of the investigation, even though my name never appeared publicly. They considered calling me to testify, but after reviewing documentary proof, they realized they didn't need me on the stand. My evidence spoke for itself. The day before the trial was set to begin, Seth finally broke. He took a plea deal. 28 years in federal prison. Loss of all assets. Total forfeiture of company holdings. Permanent disqualification from any financial profession. And a mandatory restraining order preventing him from contacting me or my family for life. The prosecutor called me moments after the signing. "It's done," she said. "He confessed to everything." I didn't respond at first. I just closed my eyes, letting the tide of relief wash through me. It didn't feel like victory at first. It felt like release, like a weight removed from my chest brick by brick. "Is it really over?" I whispered. "For him, yes," she replied. "For you, this is your new beginning." When I hung up, I stared at the blank hotel wall, feeling the quiet settle around me. No fear, no running, no hiding, just stillness. Hours later, I took the train back home, not because I had to, but because I wanted to reclaim my life. My mother hugged me so tightly that I felt something deep inside me stitch itself back together. 1 week later, a letter arrived. From the IRS. A recognition award for significant contribution to uncovering multimillion-dollar tax evasion. A financial reward, enough to give me breathing room, enough to start over, enough to build something new, something mine. But the greatest reward wasn't the money. It was the knowledge that I didn't let a man like Seth Porter define my story. I defined it. I exposed him. I survived him. And I destroyed the empire he built on fear. Months later, with the settlement money, I opened my own forensic analysis consulting firm. Small at first, then growing fast. Ethical, transparent, everything Porter and Nolan pretended to be. Clients found me, trusted me, respected me. And every time I walked into my office, every time I looked at the clean white walls, the plants thriving in sunlight, the air free of corruption and lies, I knew one truth. Revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It wasn't dramatic. Revenge was justice. Revenge was rebuilding. Revenge was standing tall after someone tried to break you. Revenge was living a life so whole and untouchable that the person who tried to destroy you is left with nothing but the memory of their failure. In the end, I didn't just expose my boss's tax fraud. I exposed the man he really was. And I made sure, absolutely sure, He would never silence anyone again,